In our last video, if you haven't already, just Command S to make sure your your SketchUp model is saved. I'd hate for you to lose this. You'll see in my components window on the right hand side, I now have bottom rail, a leg, support rail, a top rail, and a top. If you've named something wrong like I have, I think I've just called this a tall rail. It should be a top rail. You can just rename it very simply. It's not a problem. And if you've got this character here called Mark, again, that's not a problem that that's there. Just need to ignore it. It's just a default setting that comes in SketchUp. To get started, I'm going to select bottom rail and I'm just going to place it in my project like this. Okay, click it to place it and you'll see that that is now set and ready to go. I'm now going to get my support rail. My support rail is in my project. It needs to run across this point where that lap joint, this T halving joint, is going to fit together. But you'll see the timber is facing the wrong way. So while it's selected, I'm going to use the rotate tool to rotate it. And then I'm going to use the move tool to connect it together. Now when I use the move tool, I can move and connect 2 points together. I know that this corner right here needs to meet this corner right here. So I will click here and then drag down and click here and see how it snaps together. That's exactly what you want. And I now have 2 of my pieces assembled. The next piece that I need is a bottom rail. Okay, so here's a bottom rail. Again, I'm going to use move by point. This corner here needs to connect with this corner here. This corner here connects with this corner here. It doesn't matter which corners you use. Okay, just as long as they click together like that, you are doing it correctly. I now have the bottom of my utility stool ready to assemble. I'm going to put in some legs now. Now my legs should be pointing upwards, so again I'm going to need to use the rotate tool. Okay, and I'm just going to rotate them so they're a bit like this. Okay. Now obviously if I go to my front view, you'll see that my leg is pointed perfectly upright, but it should be pointing at an angle. What angle do you think I might need to use here? Yes, it is the 75-degree angle. Okay. So if you're not sure, just set it to the 75-degree angle and you should be ready to go. Now if I go to move this around now, you'll see that it's also pointing in the wrong direction. Okay, the wrong direction to connect with these pieces. So you might need to do a couple of rotations to make sure that this actually ends up in the correct rotation for what you need for this project. Okay, so remember when you're working with your rotations, you want to make sure that your angles are perfectly correct. Now, if you can't get it right at all, okay, let's go back, delete it, place it in again, and have a real think about which way this needs to be rotated or this needs to be flipped. Because if it's just a simple flip that needs to occur, then you can go to the edit, you can go to solid component, you can go to flip along, and there are 3 different options here for how you flip it. Okay, I've just flipped this on the red. Now I'm going to use the rotate tool. 75 degrees, and I can see this is already looking a lot better, and those 2 pieces will now connect together. Once I've got it in the right angle and the right orientation, I can actually select Command C, Command V, and paste the exact same configuration, and I can still use my snap tool to connect some pieces together. So might like to, sometimes can be a bit tricky to get these to snap together. Okay. There we go. And once you've got that snapped, maybe just save that so that we know that we've got our project ready to go. I apologize, my dog is barking in the background. I hope it hasn't disturbed you too much. Now if you rotate around, you'll see that this project is looking sort of halfway complete. We need to keep going at this point, so let's put in another leg. Okay. Let's go to Edit, Solid Component, flip along. I'm going to pick green this time. I'm going to use my Rotate tool. And then my Move tool. And that's looking good so far. Copy and paste. So select tool, copy and paste, Command C, Command V. And now I have my project that looks a bit like this. Last thing that I'm missing before I can put my top on is my top rail. My top rail needs to just click into location. So I can put 2 of those top rails in. Again, I'm just using the move to point to get them to connect together. They should be connecting together absolutely correctly. If they are not connecting together, see how this one's not connecting together properly? That indicates that there's an issue somewhere in my model because the dimensions we've been using are correct. So let's have a look. We need to look at each joint and make sure the joints are nice and neat. Okay, so they're all looking really neat, all looking really neat. Oh, here we go. See this joint here, how it's not very neat? What we are going to do is we're going to select this and this at the same time. We're going to use the Move tool and we're actually just going to click it over here. And you'll see that's now fixed that up. Okay. So, front view, top view, 3D view. The last piece that I need to put on my project is my top piece. Again, it's just a simple move by point. Okay, so this corner here needs to meet with this corner here. And you have now fully assembled. You have now fully assembled in 3 dimensions your utility stool project. Save your project at this point. Now, sometimes when you're doing your drawings, you actually need to get rid of your assembled and use individual components. So to prevent you having to build it again, I want you to select and highlight all, right click and make that a component also. And this time we're going to call this assembled project. That way we can delete it out, and if we need to, it's in our component window, so we can always get it back. That's the end of this set of videos on how to draw and assemble your video. There is one last video remaining, which is how you get this into layout ready to present your assessment task. So feel free to move on to that if that's where you're up to at this point. Thanks very much.